The last 3 times I tried ice fishing kokanee, I got skunked. And when I say skunked, I mean not even a nibble, nothing. You wanna know how bad it was? Well, the conservation officer come to check my license, but when he saw how badly I was fishing and catching nothing, he took 15 minutes to explain all of his tips and ways that I could improve catching kokanee. Great guy. But why do I want to catch kokanee so badly? Well, as you may already know, kokanee is landlocked salmon. Tastes totally different than the trout that I normally catch around here. Now, I have a lot of friends that like to eat salmon. They're not so big on trout. And even have one friend, he is a master of making sushi. He used to work in a high-end restaurant. And think about how happy I would feel to present him with a kokanee that he could turn into sushi for me. Actually, that's kind of selfish of me. Anyway, February 21st, 2022. A group of friends are going out to Chimney Lake to try ice fishing kokanee. Now, for those of you who aren't locals in the Caribou area in the interior of British Columbia, it's about a half-hour's drive away from Williams Lake. When I heard about this ice fishing trip, I was all in. So I reviewed everything I knew and thought I knew about ice fishing kokanee, and I went down there to show them how to get it done. Well, just watch the video and stay tuned to the end where I will share my top kokanee catching tips that I learned while fishing on Chimney Lake. Let's watch. It's 6 o'clock, still completely dark out, but I'm feeling hopeful. Today's gonna be the day that I finally get the kokanee. It's minus 17 and a blowing wind. I must say my hands are a little bit cold. I've got the kinds where the fingers are exposed, so I'm gonna drill some holes, warm up, and get my tent set up. After getting zero action on my line, I put the camera down the hole just to see if any fish were coming around. Well, the kokanee were laughing at me again. Not a fish in sight. So with deep embarrassment, I approached the tent of a good friend, Brian Stephen, to get some tips on how I could catch some kokanee. Well, the first tip he gave me was I was using all the wrong bait. I also drilled a hole as close as I could to his tent, hoping that some of the charm of the Kokanee King would rub off on me. After that didn't work, my friend Rick Legamet came over and gave me a few tips on how I could improve my jigging. Still, no kokanee, and it was getting so late in the day and I didn't want to get skunked again. So I went back to the tent of the Kokanee King, Brian Stephen, and I begged him, please tell me everything you know. Please help me to catch a fish. You've got 9 beautiful kokanee, and I've got a lot of ice in my hole. After humbling myself and begging for help on my hands and knees, he invited me into his tent.
Start to see red marks, you'll see other sticks, lines show up there.
Okay. Wow, that's a pretty big jig. Okay.
So, but that's your spoon, right? Your spoon is making that your flasher.
Okay, we broke the kokanee curse. 2 minutes after I got my tutorial, I landed this. Thanks to the Kokanee King, Brian. And after all that, it was time to head home. Although it was a lot of fun, it proved to be a bittersweet day. While on the ice, my favorite pair of insulated coveralls were destroyed, and they were a gift from my wife just weeks earlier. So with heavy heart, I headed down to Mark's, just hoping that something could be done. I didn't think there was anything they could do, but I had to try. I explained my situation to the most amazing sales associate named Riley, and she fixed everything. And what's your name?
My name's Riley.
Riley, you are the best. Absolutely the best. Okay. So as promised, here's my top 6 tips for ice fishing for kokanee. Tip number 1, bring the bling. You gotta have a flasher or a dodger preferably. if you want to attract the kokanee's attention. Tip number 2, tiny lures. I was using all the wrong types of lures. Just a tiny little guy will bring them in. Tip number 3, live bait. I was using dead bait or things like corn and shrimp. It wasn't working. Live maggots was where the action was at. Other people use things like krill too, but use live bait for kokanee. Tip number 4, location is everything. I set up too early before everyone got there. I picked a bad location. I should have listened to my friends and moved out earlier to the deeper waters. Even though the fish were only about 10-15 feet down, I was in the wrong spot. Well, a lot of times people just go to where all the other fishermen are fishing for kokanee and catching them. That's a good tip. Number 5, jigging. Not all jigging is the same. Little motions on the trout, big jigs on the kokanee to get their attention. And the last tip, number 6, kokanee have soft mouths, so whenever you set it, you have to be more careful than with trout or you'll rip the hook right out of their mouth. So what's your favorite ice fishing tip for kokanee? Please put it in the comment section below. And consider subscribing to my channel as I'll be showcasing other lakes in British Columbia, Canada. Until next time, keep on fishing on.